What is up,
Hello.
YouTube?
It's been a while, I feel like,
It
since
feels
we've
like
done
it's
one of
been a while, but
these.
how long has it actually been since we did one of these episodes?
I
Let's
feel like
look.
it's been like at least a week and a half,
The
maybe
last
those
one,
weeks.
the last one was up. The last one was um the last one was uploaded April 16th. So yeah, it's been like almost 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We've been lazy, dude. We got to get back on our
Well,
we got to
we
get
did
back on our
a
fucking grind, dude.
full length Murakami book review on our podcast.
Which is coming out this weekend.
Yes.
And it's very long.
So longest one yet.
Over 3
Biggest
hours.
book. Yeah.
Big book, long review.
I think I'm excited for people to listen to that one. That was a
Yeah,
good
me
one.
too. It's of Killing Commendatore.
Killing Commendatore.
Which I had some connections that I made with at least the last story here.
Oh.
Well, we could talk about that. It's like linguistic shit. It's not like really plot shit.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, my name is Gabe, everybody, and
my name's Paul.
We're from the Spinecrackers podcast and YouTube channel, and Twitter account, and Instagram account, and Facebook.
Yeah, we're from all of them.
We're from all of those things, and and the Spinecrackers Patreon, which you can support if you like the show. If you like either this or the actual podcast, either way, you can support the Patreon.
Yeah, you can do it.
Patreon.com/Spinecrackers. It'll be in the description below. Just point to Murakami's ding dong. There was so much boner talk in this second to last.
There was a lot of boner talk.
A little
bit in both of them, really. I mean, there's some weird sex cringy stuff. Not boner talk, but
sex stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, yeah. So this is the conclusion, the final episode. We're not done with Murakami because we're gonna move on. This will be our last. We're gonna move on to The Elephant Vanishes, which I'm excited for. But this is our last episode on Murakami's collection of short stories, Men Without Women. And it's a bit of a double whammy, but kind of not, because these stories were both kind of short, and the last one was really short. So this is going to be the sixth episode on this book, but we're going to cover the last two stories and kind of give our concluding thoughts about the book overall. Right?
Yes. That sounds good to me. Am I too loud?
I don't think.
Sound okay?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
If you care about audio quality, you're a nerd and you're not welcome in our podcast. Just kidding, you are.
Yeah, just kidding. We kind of do, because we all have microphones.
We care enough to get microphones. I have one here. Look.
Yeah. Jonker.
So, what did you say? Joker?
No, chonker.
Jonker.
Joker
microphone.
Joker microphone. Paint why so serious on it.
Oh my god, yeah, just paint it purple and green and just draw his face on the actual
someone has done that and they just talk into it.
Of course,
just as the Joker.
Yes. All right, so we're talking about the last two stories from Men Without Women, Samsa in Love and Man Without Women, the titular, the eponymous story. Is that how it works? I forget. Is the book eponymous? I don't know. I don't know how it works.
I don't know.
Vocabulary, book podcast.
Vocabulary.
So
not one of my strong suits.
That's not true. How many words do you think?
Okay. I don't know.
It reminds me of one of my favorite Sacha Baron Cohen moments. He was interviewing Noam Chomsky as Ali G. And Noam Chomsky is like a linguist originally before he really got into his political stuff. And he just goes, as Ali G, he just goes, so how many words does you know?
That's so good. How did he respond?
He just
in typical.
He just talked about the average human vocabulary.
He's the most dry man.
Very yeah. I wonder if Noam Chomsky has ever made a joke
or laughed in his life.
Yeah, maybe when he was young.
Maybe.
So anyway, this second to last story, Samsa in Love. It is I don't know, it's not like explicitly this, but it's basically a sequel to Kafka's The Metamorphosis. That's kind of how I read it, where the cockroach that Gregor Samsa is turned into in The Metamorphosis, although in that story I thought he died.
I read it in high school, so I really can't remember.
There's probably a lot of shit from this story that we're both missing. I have not read that story since I was probably 15. Yeah. And I thought he dies at the end of it, but I'm not sure. Yeah, he dies. But anyway, or it's suggested that he dies. It says he dies of starvation on the Wikipedia summary.
Maybe he didn't, though.
But apparently, maybe he didn't, because in this story, a cockroach, a former cockroach, wakes up and is metamorphosed into the character Gregor Samsa. And I think it's implied that he's in the same house from the metamorphosis, because it was pretty clear that he had been locked in that room, right? Which was true in the metamorphosis.
Yeah, I remember that happening.
Yeah. And at the end of the metamorphosis, his parents and sister move away. So it kind of makes, and it's also clear in this story that no one had been in the house for a while. And so it's kind of makes sense that it's the same house from the metamorphosis. So anyway, it's basically the story of him who had been a cockroach for a while, trying to sort of get used to being a human again and like figuring out like what to do in the world. And
it's a big change from the rest of the book.
It is. It is. It is kind of. It's again, I think like in this book, the weirdness has kind of been like this. It's gone from like not weird at all to like the most weird.
Yeah.
But and then so he's trying to figure out what to do as a human. He realizes there's like a lock on this door, and he does he call, or does this woman just show up because someone else had
She just shows up because it's implied that his parents had called a locksmith company.
Right. Okay. So a woman from the locksmith company shows up to look at the lock on his bedroom. And she's
like in her early 20s and has a hunchback.
Yeah, she's like physically has a physical deformity or physical disability or whatever, and she's a hunchback. And they just kind of hang out and talk, and then he gets a boner.
Yes. And he doesn't know what it is because he's still he doesn't know what a lot of words are. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, coming back
from being a cockroach,
his human form. Yeah.
And she's like, why do you have a fucking boner, you creep?
Yeah. And she's like, why do you just, oh, I see, you think you can, like, guys just think they can have sex with hunchbacks because we're hunchback people.
She thinks it's like a fetish, like pervy thing.
Yeah. But then it's kind of implied that he just like weirdly does have feelings for her, or like some connection.
Which like this, I wonder, like, and then that's basically it. That's like basically the whole story.
It's very short.
She leaves, and he's like, can I see you again? And she's like, are you gonna get a weird boner? And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, maybe. And that's basically the whole story.
Yeah.
And it's implied that there's some kind of like military conflict going on somewhere. Like she talks about like there's tanks and checkpoints and shit outside. So that's never really developed, but that's kind of because they're in Prague. No. It's identified as being in Prague.
That aspect of the story was like, a shy taste of something political that Murakami was trying to talk about, but it kind of just seemed like an aspect to the story and didn't really have that much of a purpose.
He was like, I'm going to write a story about love in wartime, and he's, damn it, I just wrote about boners again.
The most boner talk out of all the stories.
I think this story has the most penis talk of all of them. Yep.
Yeah. It was actually the first time that in my Murakami experience that I was just like, this is too much. Usually I'm fine with it, but this time I was like, yeah, what? Come on, man.
Well, and it is weird. This one I did kind of, I had a similar experience where I was kind of like, wow, like, this one did feel a little bit reductive, because it was almost like, because that's one of the things, and we'll talk about this in our kind of book wrap up at the end of this video, but one of the things that Murakami constantly gets shit for is being reductive about sex and reductive about women and blah, 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 and being like too simplistic with it. And this one did kind of feel that way a little bit to me. Like it's kind of like, oh, he's like, oh yeah, it's just an innocent boner and it means you're in love if you don't know. it's like people who don't know what a boner means, it's not gross and it means they're actually in love.
Yeah, I mean, if this newly human cockroach man is getting a boner for this hunchback woman and most people wouldn't get a boner for her, he must be in love with her.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I walked away from the story, like learning or thinking that he was trying to say. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, so it was a little bit like biologically reductive, I think, to me.
Yeah, well, I thought there was an obvious connection with someone who has the deformity. I mean, I keep saying hunchback. It's probably not PC, but that's how they refer to it in the story. So yeah, whatever. But I thought there was an obvious connection between him being, a beetle or whatever he was in Metamorphosis, and then him coming out of his beetle form and slowly turning back into a human, but still kind of being beetle-like. And then this woman, I'm not saying hunchbacks look like beetles, but I thought there was some physical. We are digging a hole. But I thought that was like an obvious statement on what was happening with his transformation. And I thought it was a little reductive and I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
it wasn't great.
Yeah. The most kind of like generous interpretation, I guess, is like that, at the beginning when Samsa kind of turns back from a cockroach Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. From a cockroach to a human, he's kind of like, oh my God, being a human actually kind of sucks. Like, this is gross and stupid. And like, what's the point of all these dumb fingers? And like, if I just poke myself, I'll just die. And I kind of think that is sort of representative of Murakami's own view that human life and human physicality is just kind of absurd and gross and stupid.
Really?
Kinda.
Why do you think that? I didn't pick up on that.
Well, I just think that kind of having read a little bit more of it, I think that is part of why his sex scenes are always so kind of awkward and arguably gross, is because he just thinks sex is awkward and gross. And
potentially true.
And I think this is part of that, this description of like, let me see if I can find, I had a couple of these passages highlighted when he turns right back into a human. He goes, Sam, this is right on like the third page of the story, so page 189. Samsa looked down in dismay at his naked body. How ill-formed it was, worse than ill-formed. It possessed no means of self-defense, smooth white skin covered only by a perfunctory amount of hair, with fragile blue blood vessels visible through it, a soft, unprotected belly, ludicrous, impossibly shaped genitals, gangly arms and legs, just two of each, a scrawny, breakable neck, an enormous, misshapen head with a tangle of stiff hair on its crown, two absurd ears jutting out like a pair of seashells. Was this really him? Could a body so preposterous, so easy to destroy, no shell for protection, no weapons for attack, survive in the world? Why hadn't he been turned into a fish or a sunflower? A fish or a sunflower made sense. More sense anyway than this creature Gregor Samsa. There was no other way to look at it. And I kind of think that that's just Murakami stating his own view about humanity in some ways.
Yeah, but he also is so fascinated with sex. But maybe he just thinks that it's an aspect. Sex is just like an aspect of our humanity that to him is gross, but it's a part of us. So he writes about it anyway.
I mean, yeah, no, definitely. And I also think at the end of the story, it's kind of like, it's this duality, right? Because at the end of the story, it is sort of redeemed in some way when Samsa starts to have feelings for this girl or whatever. And he kind of revisits that initial revulsion at the human form and like human physicality. He says, he's talking about the girl. This is like one of the second to last paragraphs. He says, just thinking about her made him warm inside. No longer did he wish to be a fish or a sunflower or anything else for that matter. For sure, it was a great inconvenience to have to walk on two legs and wear clothes and eat with a knife and fork. There were so many things he didn't know. Yet, had he been a fish or a sunflower and not a human being, he might never have experienced this emotion. So he felt. And I think that that's kind of, those two paragraphs together are kind of like encompass Murakami to me in some ways. Like that there's this gross, dumb, awkward, like terrible sort of stuff about being a human that's kind of inherently stupid. But then there are these like moments of kind of saving beauty and grace and whatever.
I think that's a good connection you made. And I think that I kind of agree with that sentiment too.
Yeah.
Myself. So even though I didn't really enjoy the story that much, I think that if he slid in his actual views on humanity, that's one positive that might boost my score up a bit for this one.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I didn't actually really like reading this story that much. It was kind of just like, meh, whatever for me.
Yeah.
But I do think there was a little bit, and maybe that's why. Maybe it's sort of like Murakami was doing a little more here's what I actually think than he normally does.
Yeah.
I think that's a possibility. I'm not sure, but those two things kind of clicked for me in terms of what else I've read about of Murakami.
One thing I underline in this story is also something that I think, like how Murakami actually believes himself, or something he thinks he just believes. It's on 209, like 1/3 down. It's strange, isn't it? The woman said in a pensive voice. Everything is blowing up around us, but there are still those who care about a broken lock and others who are dutiful enough to try and fix it. But maybe that's the way it should be. Maybe working on the little things as dutifully and honestly as we can is how we stay sane when the world is falling apart.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I read that as a philosophy of Murakami as well, after reading his memoir and just reading a bunch. I just feel like that's how he views the world, just like
working beautiful. I think that's right, dude. That jumped out to me too. Like working on little things dutifully and honestly. That's very like Murakami to me.
Well, I think I watched a YouTube video once too about Murakami talking about just like how he likes to make little changes in life and see like the results of them like years down the line. So I mean, he's talked about that kind of sentiment in interviews.
Yeah.
So
checks out then.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, like definitely not maybe my least favorite story in the book, but I think that there's some stuff in there that can give you some insight into Murakami, like himself potentially, and his overall views. Maybe.
I mean, I did appreciate the imaginative aspect of the point of view of the story. You know, sure. I thought, and I like the opening couple pages where Samsa is like kind of waking up from his metamorphosis back into being a human. And he's kind of like, I don't know. I like the descriptions of someone figuring out a new body. That's always fun.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say it's probably my bottom two for the book.
Here's a question. How does this story fit into the theme of men without women?
That's a good question.
Because it kind of, yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the story of the Scheherazade story with the guy that was kind of like home written or bedridden.
I think that's the closest one for sure.
Yeah. Just some guy who's he was a beetle, but he's obviously very womanless. So it can fit the theme in that basic sense.
It's true.
And he has no idea what he's doing. He doesn't even know what boner is.
He had no idea.
I did laugh, even though it was absurd and gross. I was laughing at this kid who just has a boner and doesn't even know what's happening.
I kind of think that's what he wanted, though, right? It's that thing, like the human condition and the body and sexuality is just kind of dumb and gross and funny.
Yeah. Which is, I think that's a good message.
Yeah, definitely. The last part, though, was a little Jordan Peterson for me, which I didn't like.
What part? Oh, the last
very
story?
last paragraph. The last paragraph of this story.
Let's read it.
Okay, I'll read it. Samsa sat there for a long. This is after the girl has left. Does she get a name in this story? I don't think so, right? It's always just the woman.
The woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Samsa sat there for a long time with his eyes closed. Then, making up his mind, he stood, grabbed his black walking stick, and headed for the stairs. He would return to the second floor and figure out the proper way to dress. For now, at least, that would be his mission. The world was waiting for him to learn. Jordan Peterson, clean your room, dress your clothes.
That last line in particular is very Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. So that's the one thing where that sort of philosophy of like, oh yeah, just mind your own house, do the small things dutifully and good. Like, that's a little Jordan Peterson for me.
Yeah, I mean, especially when Jordan Peterson states that the outcome of that is you can change the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, I mean, if you clean your room, it might make you feel better. Maybe that's kind of the extent to me of how much that can do for you. You're not going to change the world.
I like to do both little and big things sloppily and fast.
Is everything that a euphemism?
Everything I do bad.
That's not true.
No, I know. Do you want to give this story some scores?
I'm going to give it a 2.8.
Yeah,
2.7.
I was going to give it like a 2.4. Not my favorite.
Wow, below average. So don't read that.
No, not don't read that. No.
Okay.
Like average. That's like pretty much average.
Yeah, I'm at 2. Yeah, we're about the same.
Yeah. All right, what's the last story about, dude? Men without women.
Men without women. Did we decide on what's the term for that when it's in the album with the song? What is it called when like
it's like titular. It's the titular story.
Titular.
Not a sex thing.
No. Tit. Is that what you...
That was the joke, yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Okay. All right. I'm an idiot. Well, this is the shortest one in the book.
Yeah, by quite a bit, right?
Yeah, and it's basically about this guy. I don't think he's named, is he? But he ends up gets.
I don't think anyone is named
call.
in the story.
I don't think anyone is named. Yeah, but he gets a call at like 1 a.m.
Oh, there's M. There's M. M is the woman.
Yeah, he gets a call from a guy at 1 a.m. saying that the guy calling, his wife has killed herself. She's dead. And it turns out that the guy he's calling, he dated this girl like years and years ago. M. And the guy hangs up and not explaining anything. He just kind of says, she's dead, hangs up. And it's basically just, 10 or 12 pages of this guy reminiscing about this relationship he had years ago with this woman, how they first met in junior high school. But there are some, lovely passages, I would say, about Murakami's, view on loneliness and just general views on men without women. I mean, he says the title of the book multiple times in this story, which I thought was interesting and strange.
It's basically a manifesto for incels. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
It's not quite, but it is a manifesto for what Murakami calls men without women.
Yeah.
There's not like a plot, right? It's like this: the guy gets the phone call, and then he kind of reminisces about this. First of all, he doesn't know how this guy even heard his name or got his phone number or why he's calling him. The guy's like, "Hey, she killed herself," and then basically hangs up. Yeah. And then he just kind of like goes through thinking about the memories that he had with her, and then ruminating on what it means to be a man without women, which Murakami,
a men without women,
importantly makes a point to say is always plural. You're not a man without women. You are a man without women as an individual, which I think is kind of interesting and weird. Like, it's like a community thing. And the reason that I brought it up is because, and I mentioned this before we started recording, Paul, but this was the weird linguistic connection that I had to Killing Commendatore, because in that story, the commendatore refers to individual people as his friends. And this is the same thing. And I wonder like what it means to Murakami to like insist on, as he says here, he goes, this is on 220 to 221. Suddenly one day you become, all caps, not all caps, but capitalized, first letters. Suddenly one day you become men without women. That day comes to you completely out of the blue, without the faintest of warnings or hints beforehand, no premonitions or foreboding, no knocks or clearing of throats. Turn a corner and you're already there, but by then there's no going back. Once you round that bend, that is the only world you can possibly inhabit. In that world, you are called men without women, always a relentlessly frigid plural. And I just thought that stuck out to me because that was also such a weird thing about the Commendatore in Killing Commendatore, that he called everybody, individual people, friends.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I don't really know what the point is.
Me either.
Do you?
Nope.
I don't get it. I mean, it's just a weird thing. I actually want to read the paragraph right after that because I thought this paragraph was rather beautiful, especially for an incel like me. Only men without women can comprehend how painful, how heartbreaking it is to be one. You lose that wonderful west wind. He's referring to, it doesn't matter. 14 is stolen away from you forever. A billion years should count as forever. The far off, weary lament of the stars. Is that how you pronounce that word? Lament?
Lament of the sailors.
Of the sailors.
Yeah.
I said stars.
Yeah.
I'm really doing a great job in this paragraph. The bottom of the sea with the Ammonides and Colec. I can't read, dude. Can you just read it for me?
Yeah. That's the only reason
I'm panicking.
The only reason
I'm panicking like I'm in 9th grade.
Shout outs to my Animal Crossing people because that's how I know this word. You want me to just start over?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Only men without women can comprehend how painful, how heartbreaking it is to become one. You lose that wonderful west wind. 14 is stolen away from you forever. A billion years should count as forever. The far off, weary lament of the sailors. The bottom of the sea with the Ammonites and coelacanths. Calling someone's house past 1 a.m., getting a call after 1 a.m. from a stranger. Waiting for someone you don't know, somewhere between knowledge and ignorance. Tears falling on the dry road as you check the pressure of your tires. It's a great paragraph.
Great paragraph. I wish I could read it.
You can read it up here.
No, the thing is, like, it's like that since I was in like freaking 8th grade. I would like sweat, and it happens on the podcast for me too. I panic if I pronounce one word wrong.
Yeah, it's all good.
Of sweat coming down my face, and I just get worse and worse.
Life goes on
anyway.
But yeah, it's a great paragraph. And he it is a good paragraph to read because he references a lot of stuff that comes up in this story. Like he talks about. It's so weird. Like there are definitely some weird parts of the story. Like he talks about this woman that he used to date and being like, if we had met at 14, it would have been different. Like we should have met when we were 14, not when we were like, however old they were. We don't, you know what I mean? And he talks about specifically like 14 being this like magical or important age or whatever.
Magical realism.
Exactly. And then this metaphor of the sailors is everywhere in the story. He like basically like when he loses M, which I don't remember why they broke up eventually. Do you remember, Paul?
Yeah, I don't remember why, but they dated for like 2 years.
It may not be stated like exactly why they broke up, but he blames it on like. He's like, oh, I imagined that there were these sailors and that took her away. And that's like this metaphor that he like clings to for his whole life about why their relationship ended. And yeah. I thought it was really interesting. Like, and I wondered if it was a critique of masculinity in some way that, because that's like a sort of like, kind of removing her agency out of the whole thing, right? Like they didn't break up because she wanted to leave him or whatever. She was whisked away by like sailors. By handsome, hot firemen sailors. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're right. Yeah. Which is a classic, like, incel thing. Like, it's the alphas and betas. This is basically like the sailors are the alpha males and the narrator is the beta male.
Yeah. Yeah, I did kind of feel like that. But I still, yeah. If that is what he was trying to convey by using sailors, then I think that was smart.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, overall, I don't have much more to say about this one, or I don't have a lot to say about it. I don't know. It was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it. I thought, again, like you said, I thought there were some beautiful passages. And, you know, there's a lot packed in here. There's stuff about how they like were kids and she like broke her eraser in half and gave him the other half. And that was kind of like when, or that's how he imagined it happening. And like that would be how they fall in
Yeah.
love. And then there's this like weird park that he goes to with a unicorn statue where he always thinks about her.
And then there's the weird aspect of M, who loved elevator music, and she
Yeah.
had like thousands of cassette tapes, and she would play elevator music in the car. And a few of this is what I was talking about when I said there's some boner talk in this one too, because he talks about one particular elevator music song that still gives him a boner every
Right.
time he
Right.
hears it.
Yes, you're right. Yep. It's a really kind of interesting. He packs a lot into like whatever it is. What is it, like 12 pages or something?
Yeah.
And there's a lot there, and I think it's, you know, it's an appropriate way to end the book because it's like a sort of attempt at stating the philosophy of men without women. Like what does it mean, or why is it as a concept? But I don't know how effective it was at doing that, just because I felt like there was so much. So there was like the sailor thing, the unicorn, the elevator music, the you know, the coelacanths and the ammonites are mentioned a couple times, these like ancient sea creatures and that are extinct, and you know, just the men without women being a plural. I don't know, it was a lot of, it felt like a lot for this short period of time.
Yeah, I do feel like it could have been longer.
Or just
Or
pick one or two of those things to like focus on.
yeah, it felt like a lot of the same from other stories too. Like the little details about the characters felt like, you know, rehashed, or you know, it just felt like that could have been written in another story about a particular character, and it felt like it didn't really need to be in this story. I feel like it should have been more about his philosophy about men without women. But I mean,
And then he mentions at one
whatever.
point that like this is the third girl that he dated that's killed herself.
That was weird, and it felt a little far fetched to me.
Well, yeah, and but I mean, but that is in the story too, because like this is obviously an extremely high fatality rate.
Yeah,
So he like even references the implausibility of it.
yeah,
I don't know. This was a weird one. This was a
it
weird
was really
one.
weird.
Again, like there were some. I kind of just want to read this long paragraph, which I think is good. So he's sort of talking about his memories of M. This is on 217. I tried to collect fragments of clues as to her whereabouts in all sorts of places from all sorts of people, but these were nothing but scraps, assorted bits and pieces. No matter how many you collect, fragments are still just that. Her essence always vanished like a mirage, and from land, the horizon was infinite, as was the horizon at sea. I busily chased it, moving from point to point, from Bombay to Cape Town to Reykjavik to the Bahamas. I made the rounds of every town with a harbor, but by the time I arrived, she was already gone. Only a faint trace of her warmth remained on an unmade bed. Her scarf with its whirlpool design lay hanging on the back of a chair. A half-read book, its pages open on a table. Half-dry stockings hung out to dry in the bathroom, but she was no longer there. Cunning sailors around the world sensed me coming and quickly snatched her away and hid her once more. By this time, of course, I'm no longer 14. I'm more suntanned and tougher. My beard is thicker, and I know the difference between a metaphor and a simile. Another reference to Killing Commendatore.
Yes.
But a part of me is still 14, and the part of me that's 14 forever waits very patiently for a gentle west wind to stroke my innocent penis. Wherever that west wind blows, M will surely be found. That's M to me. I forgot about that last line until I got
That
there.
last line, I remember reading it, and it like took me out of the moment so hard.
It
It's
is
like,
a red,
why?
yeah, yeah. Because he talks. I forgot there were penis and boner lines because he talks about being
Yeah.
a kid and like the wind blowing on your penis and getting a boner. Weird.
I think it's important though that like, in the last story you're talking about how, you know, if Murakami's overall view of sex is that it's just like kind of funny and gross,
which I think
it actually makes all the sex scenes he has a bit more bearable. If you know, I think like even that line in particular is just like, it feels a little out of place to me.
Yeah,
but I think of it as being less weird and more funny now.
Yeah. So what do you think about this story, score-wise?
This guy. I think I'll give it a 3.
I definitely liked it more than the other one. I think I'll give this one the 2.8.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it, man.
Yeah.
That's Men Without Women.
That's it. Collection. It seems like we've been reading this a long time.
We have been. It's been a couple months, right?
It's a strange way to read a book after
especially
our podcast
stories.
Yeah, but just the fast nature of the podcast. I'm like, this is how I used to read a book. 2 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's definitely a slower vibe.
Yeah.
So what are your takeaways from the book overall? And then maybe we can give the overall book a score.
That's a good idea.
And that could be official.
Takeaways. I think my overall impression is that my favorite aspects of the book are the ways that Murakami can express the feeling of loneliness. I thought that was the biggest strength for me. I just think he, even though he's a married man, he really knows what it feels like.
I guess I think it's just because you mentioned that, it's important to add that the man in the final story is also married, and he still considers himself a man without women.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yes. I forgot about that.
So that's actually important. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, it did kind of feel like what's the word I'm looking for? Like autobiographical.
A little bit. Murakami is unhappy. Everyone take it to the news.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, overall, I think it kind of lived up to the general Murakami tropes of dashes of magical realism. Another trope would be obviously the main character of any of his stories being a lonely person, and this book had like 9 stories of different characters that are like that.
Seven stories.
7. Yeah, I don't know. I did enjoy it overall, though. I thought it was an interesting way to read Murakami after only reading, longer novels.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I have a score in mind, but
as is tradition, I should go first. Well, I don't know. This wasn't really anyone's pick. We kind of both agreed to do this.
That's true. Well, we can do it at the same time.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do that. Okay.
Well, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts is that it is definitely I'm not like well versed in Murakami. I've read, this is like my third of his books. But I appreciated reading his short stories. I've had people who know Murakami much better than I do recommend reading his short stories. It's kind of part of why we did this. Shout outs Thomas. But
who's that?
Just a guy I know, is a Murakami guy. I don't want to out. I'm not trying to out anybody on YouTube.
I just didn't know that. Maybe you told me. I forgot.
I think I did. But anyway.
Yeah. Sorry, Thomas.
Mr. Tumnus.
Mr. Tumnus.
but
magical realism.
I think magical realism, exactly. Okay, speaking of magical realism, my favorite stories from the book are the ones that were kind of weird and had those aspects. Like, I'm working really hard to get over this bias that I have. I want the magical weird juice from Murakami, because
you want more magic because you love Harry Potter.
Well, if you listen, that's right. I love Harry Potter. I love
you just want magic.
I love the Chronicles of Narnia, and what else? VeggieTales. I like VeggieTales and
Magic School Bus
and The Neverending Story and The Magic School Bus.
Yeah.
And those are my favorite books, all of those. And I wish this was more like that. No, I mean, I do, I still feel like even after this book, there were a few in here that hit that for me. I still feel like I'm waiting for that big dose of like whatever, the weirdness, the Murakami weirdness. Like you'll hear this if you listen to the podcast that's coming out tomorrow about Killing Commendatore. I felt a little blue balled even by that story, which has an extended weird sequence. I still felt a little like I want a little more.
I think I honestly think you're not going to get it. I think you'll always be blue balled by him.
Maybe that's the point. Maybe
that's the point.
Maybe I'm just a beta male man without women. Men without women.
Men without women. I'm a male men without women.
But I mean, so anyway, there were some stories in here that I really loved. Kino is gonna stick with me for a long time. That's one of my favorite short stories that I've read in a while.
That was a good one.
Then there were a couple others that I really liked. I liked Scheherazade. I liked Yesterday. Kino, I think, was probably my favorite. So there's a few in here that are definitely gonna stick with me that I really loved. And then there were a few that were kind of whatever. Not stinkers, but not the best.
The only real stinker, I actually would put the last two we read as the biggest stinkers and the only stinkers, really.
I wouldn't call them stinkers. I would just call them like average.
Well, on grading on a curve.
Yeah.
I would call them stinkers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we've been reading this book so long and I was kind of done with it, but I did feel like kind of unenthusiastic about the last two.
Yeah.
Even though the last one was, better than the second to last one. It had some good ideas in it. I don't know. Maybe this book it's good that we're ending it and moving on because I felt a little burnt out by the ideas.
Yeah. I will say one thing
at this point.
One thing I agree. And one thing that I'll say about the book overall is that I do appreciate and kind of think it's funny that Murakami, in 2017 or whatever, 2018, when this book came out, having been criticized for his whole career about being like, oh, your female characters are underdeveloped, and wrote a book, right? Like a whole collection called Men Without Women. Yeah, I'm just not gonna write about women then. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I do think that's kind of funny, at least.
It is kind of funny
on a meme level. And obviously there's substance to it. You can go back and watch the fucking 4 hours we spent talking about this book or whatever it is.
Was it 4? I mean, it was 3.
So probably closer to 3. No, this book.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, between all the 6 videos we're gonna have about it, it's gonna be probably closer to 4 hours.
We spent 3 hours talking about Killing Commendatore.
Long.
Yeah. So that's 7 hours total on this podcast. We talked about Murakami.
Yep. That's our secret nickname for Murakami.
Yeah. I totally.
If you've made it this,
that out.
If you've made it this far in the video, you've earned it. You've earned knowing our secret.
We spent almost 7 hours not saying it, and then I finally say it right at the end.
It had to happen at some point.
It had to happen. It had to splurt out.
All right, so on three overall scores.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
We're gonna do 1, 2, 3, go.
Yeah. We'll do okay. No. On 3, no go. Just 1, 2. Wait. I guess go. Yeah. 1, 2,
3. Score.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me think about it.
All right. Give me 3 seconds. Adding up. Computing. Do. All right. I'm ready.
Me too.
All right. 3. Wait. I said 1, 2, 3, and I was going to count down.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Pause. Overall score.
1, 2, 3.
No. 1, 2, 3. Overall score.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. 3.27.
3.65.
Nice.
Okay. That was fun.
Yes, that was good.
More.
We should try that on the podcast.
We should, especially when we have a guest.
So you said 3.65.
Yeah.
I said 3.27. So round it 3.6.
I mean, I'm such a Murakami fanboy that it's low for me.
Yeah. It's not. I like I said. I mean, and I mean, Kino is gonna stick with me. That's one of my favorite short stories I've read in a long time. I liked some of the others. The first three, I just wanted more of the weird juice.
Yeah.
And then, Kino had it. Scheherazade had it a little bit. The last two had it, but I didn't like the last two for other reasons.
Yeah. Too many penises.
Yeah. Too many boners.
Too many boners.
No, that's not why.
Yeah, you don't discriminate against boners.
I'm very excited for Elephant Vanishes, though. Those are
me too.
That's going to be interesting because I think those are going to be a lot more kind of rapid fire. It seems like there's a lot more stories in that book. There's like 16 or something, or more, maybe even more than that.
So we'll probably do two at once.
Yeah, we'll probably do two at a time for that book.
Well, yeah, this was fun.
Yeah,
this concludes our Men Without Women minisode.
But not the Murakami minisodes overall.
Not the Murakami. No, just the Men Without Women.
So say goodbye. Everyone say goodbye to Men Without Women. Bye.
Finally can put it back on my bookshelf.
Yep. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And if you really enjoyed it, go to our Patreon, subscribe to the channel, like, comment, just comment. I want the comments. Honestly, I don't even give a shit if you like the video or not.
Yeah, comment. Don't like it. Just comment, right? Anything. Comment.
Just be like, you guys are dumb.
The alphabet.
You guys are dumb. You're ugly. You suck.
Right? Paul can't read. Why is he on a literature podcast?
That's right.
I'm be very okay with that.
Right? Gabe needs a haircut and needs to lose some weight. He's got a double chin. Like, get this guy off my fucking screen. He's an absolute mess.
That's your inner voice talking right now.
I'm a beta male. I'm Men Without Women.
Some freaking weight. Ugh.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Patreon.com/Spinecrackers. You know where the YouTube is. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Coming at you with books.